right, you ready? You ready to go?
Yes, yes.
Well, I just wanted to first start off with thank you for agreeing to do the interview. I found out about you kind of how everybody found out about you, on social media, and just got a chance to delve into your music. And I was like, okay, I think I might have some questions to ask and learn more about you as an artist, as a woman, and where you want to go.
I love it.
Before we begin, just so I make sure I'm pronouncing it right, Serafia, right?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay, I got it right.
Perfect. Perfect.
I kept looking at the pronunciation. I was like, I think I can read. Like, I'm pretty sure I can do this.
Yes, I took my time to come up with the pronunciation to make sure that people would get it because like I've had other people do Serafia, Serafina, and I'm like, no, but I appreciate you getting it right.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Serafia, how you feeling today?
I'm having a great day. I'm happy. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be alive.
I hear that. Don't you? I think you got a presentation tonight. Don't you have a show tonight?
I do, yeah. I've got my makeup and I've got like half of my getup ready to go. So
Okay, so
after
you're
this,
getting
I'm heading to sound check.
okay. Okay. Well, look, I'm not going to take too much of your time, but I did want to talk to you and get to know more about you. I think this is the ideal time with, of course, it being Black History Month and next month about to be, another country music drop that's getting people excited. So I think this is a good time to talk with you, and learn more about you as a person. So that's what we're here for today.
Lovely.
So I think I want to start like with all good questions, but I think I'll ask this, and I think I know the answer. But how did you settle upon your name, and is there a special significance attached to it?
100%. I'm actually named after my grandmother. She lived to be 97 years old. And so the name it's actually an old biblical name. And I come from a very religious family on both sides. And yeah, it's very significant. It's biblically significant and then it's family significant.
Nice. And I mean, I saw in your post where you've talked about your background and your father being a pastor. I did want to ask you this. I think in one of your TikToks you said you were born in Iowa, if I'm not mistaken. How did you go from Iowa to Salinas, California?
Oh my gosh, the journey, right? How did I? I mean, God brought me here. God has given me so many incredible blessings. Like, born in northern Iowa, literally adopted at birth. Um, my parents at the time did live in Iowa. I am adopted. My mom is from the Philippines, and my mom came over here and married my dad. And they another God reference. My mom said there was a reason that she couldn't have children, and it's because God already chose her child for her, and that was me. And so the name Serafia actually means angel, and it actually is the highest ranking of all of the angels. You have the archangels, you have like the cherubims, and the seraphims are the highest ranking order of angels. So if I say so myself, I think I'm living up to that name. And my parents just had opportunity. My dad got a job to be a pastor out in a church out in California, out in Salinas. And so they took me and my brother and we drove west. We went west.
Wow. And that is a that is a lively story. And it's funny because I was doing my Googles today and I looked up Salinas, California, and I was like, Grapes of Wrath? I was like, that is where the story
Mm-hmm.
was based from. And that
Mm-hmm.
made me wonder, for you now as a young child at this time, what was life like for you growing up in the heart of the West and in a kind of off the beaten path type of city?
Um, so Salinas is definitely a small town, and we actually lived outside of Salinas in even a smaller town. So I mean, it was rural living. I lived in the mountains. I rode horses. I just lived in a really small community. And I guess got into trouble like like little kids do, like just running around getting dirty and like doing all of that, I mean, I didn't know anything else but that life, so it was totally normal to me. That's just how I grew up. Life was great. I had a great family. Growing up in the area that I did was a little tough. Our family obviously is very different visually, so that's always going to spark a ton of questions from people. And I felt a little bit like an outsider, but I think I was just born with that dust your shoulders off type of attitude. It didn't stop me from being a cool kid, like cool as in like creative kid, not like a cool kid, but it didn't stop me from, you know, being becoming who I was supposed to be. But I've always stuck out. Let's just say that I've always stuck out. In addition to being very, very tall in life, in my hometown, I've very much stuck out.
Yeah, I don't think being 6'3" would probably put you under the radar. In boots, I'm
I
sorry, in boots.
in boots, exactly 6 foot flat footed, 6'3" in boots.
Nice. Um, Serafia, what were, I know you're a real life cowgirl, but what were some early musical influence, or who were some early musical influences for you, and what were you listening to as a child?
So outside of, and I don't say this, I say this in the most lovingly way possible, but outside being spoon fed certain artists from my dad, I don't know if you saw my post about my dad not having any connection to Black culture, and his big
Yes.
connection was through music. So he showed me all of the Black musical greats growing up, and he spoon fed them to me in the most lovingly way possible. I didn't start listening to that music until I got into my late teens and early 20s, but I was introduced to it. It went into my ears as a young child. And so that kind of always goes back to be things that are very familiar and comforting for me. Nina Simone, Bessie Smith, Billie Holiday, the women. He took me to jazz festivals. He took me to the Monterey Blues Festival. So he put me around other Black people. That was the only way he knew where to go, was to the blues festivals. He knew he would find Black people there. And I looked around and I'm like, wow, people look like me. You don't think about this when you're a kid. You don't think about like the differences. Oh, someone looks different. But then when you see somebody who looks like, you're like, oh, that person has my same hair and that person has my same skin. So my dad was instrumental in getting me introduced to Black culture through music. On my own, I was listening to Garth Brooks and Snoop Dogg. I had this dichotomy of like hip hop, California hip hop, and Garth Brooks. And I always found that even as a kid, I was like, man, this is awesome. I'm listening to these two genres and they're so different. But then when you break it down, like country and hip hop are like pretty much the same thing, just at that time, different audiences. Um, I mean, I on my own, I was listening to so much Garth Brooks. I loved Garth Brooks so much. Leanne Rhymes, her early music, literally any and any and all country music, I was just in love with. But then you have the Snoop Dogs, you have the Nina Simones. I just have a plethora of like music knowledge in my brain from a very young child.
I love the dichotomy, just how you were going from, like you said, from Snoop to Garth Brooks. That's just, it's a necessary contrast. I'm sure that shaped you as an artist. So that's interesting just to hear you mention that duo in particular.
Yeah, I remember even being like 9 years old and thinking how cool it was that I had these two polar opposite genres. But then when you look at my upbringing is polar opposite everywhere you look. So it's so natural to me to just know that there's no real differences and that things are in the umbrella of the same sphere and you can love everything. I had that just from being who I was as a person from my family. So it's very natural for me to be like, hey, I like this, I like this, I like this. So
Okay. So you go from an impressionable child who's kind of influenced, and I'm messing up my words.
You're
You go
okay.
from being an impressionable child who kind of is influenced by all these different sounds. How do you get into basketball?
Well, when you're 6 foot and I've been 6 foot tall since Lord, since I was probably 13 or 14 years old. So when you are a teenager and you're 6 foot tall and you're muscular, you're going to be getting scouted left and right. So that was just very natural for me to get into sports. I am a person that I don't want to take any of my life for granted. I'm a free spirit. I try new things. I'm just down for all experiences. And so I had the opportunity to get a scholarship. And I was like, bye bye, mom and dad. I'm taking this. Peace. Yeah.
So if I can ask, uh, where did you go and how did your collegiate experience go with not only basketball, but just in general?
I went to West Texas. It was a small school. Yeah, it was in the Permian Basin. It's called Odessa College. I also went to University of Texas Permian Basin, which is all in West Texas. It's a Texas is all about sports, so they actually give scholarships to the community, the junior colleges. Ooh, people are screaming. And actually, like some very legendary basketball players went
Yeah,
to
West Texas
smaller
is
school, West
legendary.
Texas, exactly. And the specific school I went to, not Larry Bird, but I forget who it was. I mean, this is long, long time ago that he went there, but he ended up going to play the Utah Jazz. And then um, there was a very famous WNBA player that went to my same school way before I did, Cheryl Swoops. Um, so yeah, like Texas is crazy with basketball. And it was such a culture shock for me to go. It wasn't a culture shock to go to the small town, but Texas has its own culture. And as a California girl, it was very much a culture shock to go to West Texas. West Texas. Um, that's actually where George Bush is also from, is from West Texas Midland. And so when I would travel, people, and I would say I'm from Odessa Midland, the first thing they say is George Bush. I was like, how do y'all know where our president, like one of our presidents, birth town is? Like, I don't, that's so crazy. But anyway, the basketball experience was wonderful. I actually credit that time to when I really started to just zero in on country music. It became like it took over my life. George Strait went to the college that I went to, and or the college that I transferred to, and I just absorbed everything around me. And that was like the time that I was just like, okay, I don't know that I'm going to go back and play basketball like the next few years. I think I'm going to transfer and start going to music school because I was just like so obsessed with starting a music career and like being in music. But I did both. I still did both. I graduated, I got my basketball scholarship. I did that and it was a great experience.
So I know that you've talked about your time in Texas, and in particular, you mentioned your time in Austin, and you've written songs about it. You've kind of been honest about it, but what made you go what made you decide, you know what, I'm gonna move to Austin now, and what was it about Austin in particular that kind of spoke to you?
So after I quit basketball, I decided I didn't want to play anymore. I had like, I have tall person syndrome, so I have bad back, bad knees, all that crap. Um, so I started going to a school in Central Texas, which is right outside of Austin. And I started, I applied to music school and I got into music school. And I mean, Central Texas just has such a different vibe than West Texas, and it has hills, it has waterfalls. It's just like such a vibe. And I would literally drive up to Austin. It was only 30 minutes. I would drive up to Austin to play gigs. I'd drive up to Austin to I would post ads for like, I'll be a backup singer for you. I just wanted to be like, Austin is just the live music capital. And I was like, this is where I need to be. I posted ads. I was like, hey, I'll be a backup singer for your band. And I got hired by a bunch of bands to be a backup singer, co-writer, jingle writer, all that kind of stuff. And that's where I really started my career, was when I moved to Central Texas, San Marcos, Texas. And I just joined bands, I joined groups, I sang wherever I could. I went to Europe on tour with my college group. Like, that's really when everything musical and everything was just like, okay, this is what I can actually do for the rest of my life. And it all started in Austin. It started in Central Texas and then Austin. So that's really where it began. And I was just surrounded by so much music. Austin obviously is not just country, it's so many genres. But the country aspect was such a huge life-changing part of it for me personally. It took over my life. I was so just like open to receiving like all the sounds around me, and country just like went into my brain and I never let it go.
I think you answered the question I was gonna ask because I was gonna say, if I'm not mistaken, I think you were saying your background was more like in jazz, and so you switched from jazz to country because of how expansive country was.
No, I mean, my music school, I actually got another scholarship to go to music school. It was in the vocal jazz department, and the tour that we went on was with a vocal jazz group. Jazz was everywhere, country was everywhere, rock was everywhere. It was just everything was everywhere. um I never really, all of the first bands that I was in were hip hop, soul, and rock. It wasn't country. um I think, I don't know why, to be honest, why I never got into being an artist in country. And I can only think to myself, as I was very young and I didn't see, we didn't have like, I'm not that old, but we didn't have TikTok back then. We didn't have Instagram. I didn't have Instagram in college.
Neither did
Instagram.
I. Neither did
Exactly.
I.
Exactly. And so when you see something that's a certain way, you think to yourself, maybe that's just not for me. I could love it on the side and I can sing it, but maybe I'm not supposed to be on stage doing it, because look at the people that are already doing it. Look at the crowd. They don't want someone who looks like me. And of course, in Texas as well, people are, it's the South. People want things that are buttoned up. They want things that are the same, don't change. We love it how it is. And so I never really connected the dots to be like, oh, I could do this, until much later. And it makes me kind of sad, but then it's like, hey, I'm on time. I'm right on time for everything that I'm doing. God will never put me in the wrong direction, or make me show up too late. I'm right on time.
Agreed, and we'll get into the lyrics of your song where you referenced that on Dark Horse in a minute. We'll get to that in a minute. Um, so I looked at your streaming history, and I see 2015, and I see a noticeable gap. So I'm saying, okay, what's going on during this time? Is this you honing your craft? Is this you like what happened during that gap of time is what I really want to know in that regard.
Okay, the real answer is that I took my music down. That's the real answer. I know y'all want to hear
Gotcha,
some
gotcha.
you want to hear some answer about this or that, but right now, I mean, I'll send you some stuff after we get off of this. I put out so many records. I put out a jazz record, a beautiful jazz record actually. And everybody keeps telling me to put it back. Because at the end of the day, when you listen to my country music, you're going to hear all of my jazz influences. That's just, it's impossible for me to escape my roots, my gospel, my blues, my jazz. And I don't want them to go away because it's a part of my art. But on the marketing aspect, I just took them down. Maybe I could put them up one day at another time. But I put out a jazz record. I put out an EDM record from the 2015 cut that's on there. I've literally been working on music literally my whole life and writing. And it wasn't up until 2 years ago where I really started doing country. And I did it before Beyonce, baby. So that's my claim to fame. I've been doing it. And it actually before even people started talking about the whole craze or whatever. So I got that to my name. Not that any of that matters, but I've never felt more myself since starting to do country music. And throughout the years of making and writing music, this moment for me feels like I can take everything that I have been given creatively and put it into a genre that has literally shaped and changed my life and that I have loved and hidden for a long time. And so it feels so creatively wonderful to now be doing country music and roots. I should say country and roots.
Okay, I did see you. I did notice that you put that in your description, roots. Could you offer a little bit of a explanation of what roots is as a genre, just for the people
Absolutely.
listening?
Yeah, absolutely. So roots music is essentially American roots music, which includes all the traditional sounds that come out of American music, which is traditional folk music, traditional bluegrass, traditional country, and gospel music. And I think my music now actually has all those aspects, maybe not as much bluegrass, but I really feel my music has traditional country, traditional folk, and gospel all mixed in it. And country is a part of roots music, and it's a genre that was created on American soil. And so when people start talking about country not being this and country not being that, that's honestly, they're just uneducated. And it's okay because a lot of people don't know this stuff anyway. But, you know, the record labels have an agenda to make money and to really hone in on a marketing theme. And that's just what it is. But yeah, roots music is all of that music that came out of the American struggle, the American experience, early American experience.
Thank you for educating me as well, because I was never fully clear on what the genre represented with roots, but thank you. Um, Speaking of your music, so I'm going through and I was listening to songs, and of course, your most streamed song is The Well. So I'm listening to The Well, and instantly I'm like, this is a great metaphor. I'm assuming based off your life experiences. So I said, I have to ask you, what was the inspiration behind the title of the song? And what, I guess, could you talk a little bit about how you made the song and events that stuck out in particular?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working with a guy I went to music school with on this whole project. He's my producer and my co-writer. And when we started this song, we wanted to really hammer home just the experience, my personal experience. Obviously, my daddy's a preacher. My mom was a teacher. So all those little tidbits are true, except the third verse actually isn't true. That was just, I'll tell you in a second what that was written for. But it is a metaphor for me. It's a metaphor for anybody who's working on something or struggling that needs somebody to help them through. And the well is kind of representative of just struggle, human struggle, personal struggle, and the people in your life that help you out of those situations. The third verse was actually written because the song was a pitch for a show that's on National Geographic right now. It's called Genius. And the funny thing about this is that Rhiannon Giddens is actually, her song got picked for the scene over my song, which I'm totally okay with. I'm totally okay with. But it's a scene with Coretta Scott King and her daughter. No, Betty Shabazz and her daughter. And or was it Coretta Scott King? I don't remember, but it's a scene of mother and daughter looking in the mirror at each other, and like that was what the third verse was written about. Sometimes it's okay to fudge the truth a little bit in songwriting. Of course, it's a creative project. It doesn't have to always be specific to me, but yeah, that's how the song came together.
You know, when I think about country music, I look at it and I tell my wife this because she's a big country music fan. She's already fed me a question to ask you at the end. I'm gonna make her come in here and ask you it though, because I can't
Okay.
read her handwriting. But when I think about country music, I say it's like one of the last vestiges of like authentic songwriting. Like I think of country musicians and I say, even if you don't per se like the sonics, the way they tell stories, the authenticity of the stories is there. What I'll ask you is this then, as a black woman, how do you feel about the freedom, I guess, that country music gives you as a songwriter and as a musician? And what would you say to, black people and minorities who might not look at country music as like welcoming?
So the first part of that question, I think that's country is the reason I said it's the place I feel most at home is because it is the place where I can really tell the story. In soul music, you can be very vague. In jazz, it's all about vagueness. In country music, it is about the specific storytelling, and the crowd wants that. And honestly, I have had so much love. There's a lot of hate, and the hate is loud, but I've had so much love from true country fans who have been there forever of all ethnicities. And um, country music is three chords and the truth, is what they say. And that's all you need, three chords and tell a story. And people want to hear it. People want to feel your experience. And if they might not agree so much with your politics, when you get out there and you get on the mic and you tell a story, you can reach people in ways that you can't reach them arguing behind a keyboard or arguing it face to face. I might not agree with you on this, you might not agree with me, but I'm a damn sure make you feel what I feel. And you might get some chills and goosebumps. And you might listen twice when I tell my story to you the next time, and when somebody with a similar story says theirs. And so as a person of color, that is, it's almost like such an important time for me to be a songwriter and a musician, to tell these stories to audiences that are not used to hearing stories like this. So I feel like I'm on a mission from God. This isn't even about me. This is about something so much bigger than me, you know?
The Black Opry, what significance does it mean, or what does it mean to you, and why is it important?
Oh man, I mean, I'm so fortunate to have worked with them. They have done such great work for awareness. It's so frustrating when people they say I had no idea there were so many black artists in country, and I'm just like, I want to scream, but then I'm like, you know what? No, that's
Sorry.
what I know, right? Like that's what the mission is. That's what Black Opera is for. That's what Black Opera is for. It's to show you that we are here. And there have been so many artists who have been doing this way longer than I have. Reese Palmer, I'm literally like, she's the first one to start all of this. And she literally has laid the groundwork for all of us to be able to do what we do. She's only one of seven Black women in like the last, I don't know, however many years, 50 years or something, who's ever charted on the Billboard charts. And it's just so important that we tell the story right this time. You know, tell the story of roots music, tell the story of the beginnings of country music, tell our stories. I know so many white artist stories. I've heard the songs about the trucks, I've heard the songs about the beer. I like those stories too. I like those stories too. But you know what? Black women's stories matter in this genre too. And I really hope that this door that's been cracked open by Beyonce stays open and that it's not just a frenzy and that people start to actually listen.
I hope so too. And you mentioned Reese Palmer, but today I learned about a little bit about Linda Martell as well. And you
Absolutely.
know, I say that to say, and you've kind of answered it, but how does the future of Black country music look to you right now then?
I see the future of Black country music just being very diverse. I see all different styles of country music. One thing that I think people don't also realize is that country is so much more than pop music. It's so much more. I love Beyonce. I love Beyonce. She's a pop artist. I consider her music country. I'm not. If you say it's country, it's country. My music is not going to be like that. There's an artist, Don Flemons, who does totally traditional. He's Black and he does totally traditional country music, and it's like it sounds like it's from like it's just old school. And people are going to open their eyes and see this plethora of styles that are within country music that are still called country music. Like country music is not just Morgan Wallen, it's not just Lainey Wilson. Love Lainey Wilson, but it's not just that sound. And I think that Black country music is going to open people's eyes to more of that, to the masses, to say, oh, this is country too. Oh, it's not just pop music. It's not just that. And I really hope that the labels and the industry accepts us with open arms this time, and we're going to be on the charts more. I really do. I hope that Beyonce's number one will start the trend of other Black artists getting their shine in the industry.
I hope so as well. I hope so as well. Um, the Flower District series. I kind of read a little bit about the inspiration. It's live music, but would you mind sharing how you came up with this brilliant idea and the name?
Well, it was recorded in the Flower District of downtown LA. That's my the easiest and most honest answer. We put together this warehouse. It's like I don't even know how many feet this warehouse was, maybe like 500 feet, and we just rigged it into a live performance space, and we recorded audio in real time and we recorded video in real time. And a lot of the video clips are on Instagram and TikTok, and those match up to exactly what's on the record. And I'm a live performer. I learned to become a studio performer in Austin, but Austin's a live music capital of the world, and that's where I grew up as an artist. And so I wanted to show um, other listeners and fans like this is my bread and butter. I can sing live. You want to come out and see the live show? It's going to sound just like the record because that's what I do. And I think people want more of that authenticity. I think like maybe like 5, 10 years ago, people were really into the auto tune. I like it. I don't use it, but I like when I hear people use it artistically. But I think people now we're so bogged down with the internet and the doom scrolling that we want something authentic. And so live music, live singing, real singers, people out there putting their souls on stage is gonna it's a thing again. And so I wanted to be like, hey, I'm a singer too, y'all. This is my live album. This is my real vocals. And I want to actually do more of that. I want to do more of that because that's where I feel most comfortable.
I think you should. I'll be honest, when I looked at your social media and I saw that 85% of your content was live, I was like somebody who feels comfortable singing, who can sing, and I think that will create a good trend because like you said, people do they want to hear, see the music, and I think country is about the raw emotion. So if you
Yeah,
can hear that and see that, it helps.
agreed.
Um, Dark Horse. Dark Horse. If you wouldn't mind, could you do your genius on this where you do your lyric breakdown for us? Because there's a part of it that you've referenced in different videos about how your time is coming. but I just love it if you just break down the song in general because I was trying to follow as I was hearing it.
Yeah, so it actually started off, the beginning part is actually moving from Texas to California. And basically looking into the future and hoping that everything that you dream of comes true. Um, People back home, you know, have things to say about, oh, call me when you make it, or you're not going to make it, or so many people, big fish, small town type of thing, you know? And that's really how the theme of the first verse and the second verse, I'm like going through the lyrics in my head right now. Okay. Um, yeah, it's about telling people, hey man, look at me. I've got a lot to offer. Don't sleep on me. It's eventually going to come. That part is specifically about me because I didn't just start a year ago. I've been doing music my entire life. I've been a professional musician for the greater part of 15, 12 to 15 years. And in other people's eyes, people see that and they're like, oh, you haven't made it yet. You have to be famous to make it. They don't understand that I live in Los Angeles, one of the most expensive cities in the US, and I thrive out here. I'm not famous, but I thrive. And I perform several nights a week out here. It might not be my music because that takes a while, but I still perform out here. And it's just an ode to my personal experience of leaving Texas and saying, hey, I'm gonna make it one day. Don't sleep on me.
How do you handle being a dark horse for a lot of the crucial stages of your life?
Oh man, good question. I try not to look at it like that in my day-to-day life, even though I know that that is essentially that's essentially what it's been. Um, it's been tough, but I'm hopeful. Music is the thing that makes me feel closest to God. It's the thing that connects me the most with my spirituality, and it's the reason I was put on this earth. And I know a lot of people don't have that. And so a lot of people are searching for their purpose for their whole life. I know my purpose. I might not be exactly where I want to be yet, but I have my path and I know my purpose. And I don't know, I think being a dark horse can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And for me, obviously, with my career, it fits, you know, obviously, but I don't know. I have a lot of hope in my life and I won't be a dark horse forever.
And I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with being a dark horse. I
Yeah,
looked at it as different. I just looked at it as different. I didn't
different.
look at that was my interpretation, but I wanted to see where you would go with it.
Yeah, my interpretation of a dark horse is an un like an you somebody who you don't expect, somebody who you don't expect to break through. And it's actually a political, oh, it's a dark horse candidate. That's actually where it comes from. But in the song, it is supposed to mean somebody who has been at this for a really, really long time. Um, a lot of doubts, a lot of people saying you've been doing this too long, you know, you've been, you know, over 10 years, and come on. I think that's just what it is to be an artist. I think as an artist, you're a dark horse to the world, a black sheep, dark horse, you know, it's the same type of thing. And it's just who I am. It's just who you are as an artist. You know, artists, we don't fit into the regular society like everybody else does. I was watching the Super Bowl and I was just like, man, like I'm not even really into football, but I'm not a part of this society. This isn't my society. I'm in a different society. I'm on a different path. And that's what that means to me. Yeah. It's I'm over here, y'all are over there, and it's okay. But one day you're going to look this way and be like, oh, wow, she's really doing something.
Okay, okay. I have two more questions for you.
Okay.
But the one I have to ask you is the most pressing. I know you just dropped a live album for us last year. You literally just released music. You've got singles and things in front of us, but what can we expect to hear and see from you this year?
Well, I have a lot of new music. I'm actually applying to be a Grammy member today or tomorrow, finishing my application. I know. I I'm going to submit to the Grammys this coming year. I'm going to be working on writing some really, really deep and personal, like, I don't know, Allison Russell really inspires me with a lot of her music, and she won her first Grammy last year. Um, but I really dream big, and I'm going to write a song this year that's going to be and submit it to the Grammys. There's a process that goes along with it. You have to apply, you have to get recommendations from current Grammy members. I've got all of that ready to go, but I'm going to really dig deeper than I did last year into lyric writing and into the sound of into my sound, and really try to hone a little bit more of the things that have shaped me with like my jazz and blues influences, and bring them into my next crop of songs.
What would you want your supporters and followers to do to help aid you in that process?
Hmm. Really, right now, that's a really good question. Follow me on social media. Come to my shows. Hit me up. Let me know if you know anybody who's got an opening for a gig out in Texas. I'll come back to Texas, baby. I'll come back. Um, just keep listening to my music, keep listening. Find it on whatever platform you can. At the end of the day, the interviews are great, but it's the music to me. At the end of the day, not the interviews. I love the interview.
I'm like, God, I caught a stray. Oh my
I'm
God.
sorry.
No, you're all good. No, I understand what you meant.
I didn't mean interviews. I meant like the social media is probably what I meant. Like the videos, the interviews are actually much better than social media. This is really like much more authentic than,
Personally.
yeah, yeah. Because you've got to put out a brand, you've got to post constantly, and sometimes you don't want to, and whatever. Um, but the real face-to-face connections, I mean, that nothing beats that. You know what I'm saying? And I think at the end of the day, just listen to the music. Don't judge me by where I come from. Don't judge me by how country you think I am or I'm not. Judge me on the music. Listen to the music and see what you think before you say anything. I guess that's a message to the haters. That's not for the supporters. um,
Depending on the day, it could go for either one.
it's both simultaneously, right? Yeah, yeah. Just listen to the music and support other Black female artists specifically. I mean, support country music and support Black country music, specifically the women. I'm all about, celebrating my fellow queens. But yeah, go Google all these other artists. I mean, I've met so many artists through Black Opry. Go to Black Opry shows. I'm not the only Black country singer. There can be many of us. We can all succeed. Don't pit us against each other. Don't say you're better than her. You're better than. We all have something to offer.
Well, I wanted to add to what I was going to ask you, but I knew I couldn't ask it as well as my wife can. She's a super big country fan. I was playing your music for her, and she had a question to ask. She's not going to come behind the mic, but I was just going to let. Okay, she said she looks a little rough. She's got her bonnet on, but go ahead and
Oh,
ask
it's
your question,
okay.
love.
Okay, so sorry about the accent. I'm gonna go ahead and put that out there.
I love
But
it.
country, thank you.
Alabama,
It's
Alabama.
a Georgia Alabama hybrid. I'm sorry.
Beautiful.
Okay, so country music is generally the backdrop to many artists' childhood. When you think of a moment of love or a defining memory in your childhood, which country song comes to mind?
That's a good question.
Oh man. Oh,
You might have a talent. Yeah, that's a good question.
I love
I
country
know that's a
music.
good
I know
question.
mine.
All right, I'm gonna be quiet. Your turn.
Oh my God, there are so many. It's almost like I can't even pick. Oh, can I give like, can I give three?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Blue by Leanne Rimes. That just reminds me of being like just like 10 years old, just sitting there dreaming about what I'm gonna be in life. Um, Definitely Blue by Leanne Rimes. I really truly consider myself mixed, as in I'm half Californian, half Texan. So almost like the majority of my Texas life, I was listening to like male Texas artists, George Strait being one of them. Um, and I was a teenager when I first really got introduced to George Strait, about 18. And his song, The Chair, for whatever reason, just like gets me. And I don't know why. It's a beautiful song. And it just reminds me of moving away from home as a child and being in Texas and starting a new life. So yeah, those two specific ones. I can name like probably five more, but what about you? Since you love country so much.
Believe it or not, what is it? Way down under the Chattahoochee. My mom taught. I have
Oh
three other
my
siblings,
God.
and we would go fishing in this little like tadpole pond as a child. Literally, and she'll load us up in the car, and we would go fishing and do full country days.
I love
And
that.
that is my favorite memory. And we had a choice between gospel and country. And we went to church Monday through Friday. So country
Mhm.
became our rock and roll per se. And it's so many memories that we hold and cherish that are based around those fishing trips that we would take. So that's mine.
Wow, I love that song. Oh, I could just imagine driving through Texas with that blasting.
Yes.
Wow, I love it. That.
Thank you for showing up for that part because
Yeah, thank you. I could
as I
talk
was
about music all day long. You give me a bottle of whiskey or a couple beers and a bar and y'all, and we could just talk music like literally forever. It's like my favorite subject.
don't tempt us, that's all I'm gonna say.
Where do y'all live?
We're actually in Georgia.
Okay.
Said that like I was oh man. Yeah, we're actually oh no, I
I'm
caught
rubbing off
myself.
on you.
Oh no. But yeah,
We
we're
actually,
in we are in Georgia. Yeah, so we're in Georgia, and
nice.
my wife is a big country fan, and you know I'm a primarily hip hop and R&B head, but I've grown my palate some. And spoken with a couple country artists, so my palate's exposed a little bit.
I've brought him over
Perfect.
to the Jason Aldean sign
Oh.
and the Jake
Awesome.
Owens.
Awesome.
So
Hey, at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is that hip hop and country music have the same fans. They just look a little different.
that's
But
it.
you know what? At the end of the day, the same soul and the same upbringing and the same roots. It's the same damn thing. I go to Texas dance halls back in the day, and they play hip hop in between like the line dances. That says
Yes.
something, you
Yeah,
know?
and I spoke with the gentleman. He's pretty big in the country sound, and he's bringing like what he calls like electronic dance. Well, not electronic dance, but like line dancing, but it has the hip hop sensibility to it. And when you really look at it, and he started walking me down the rabbit hole, I was like, they came hip hop came from country. The jazz, all of that is American, Black American music that was
Roots
molded
music.
into hip hop. You have to know about country music to be able to really understand hip hop. And once I
Yep,
learned about Charlie Pride, I was like, okay, this is our culture. We need to be protective and proud of it. So
absolutely. Black music, country music is black music through and through. It's a historical fact.
facts. So, but I didn't mean to get informal towards the end, but she had it written down, and I was like, you're gonna say this one because I don't know how to frame this.
Thank
Oh,
you.
y'all are good. I love the informal. I'm like, oh, Let's kick off our heels. Let's get a
Yes,
beer. Oh,
yes. But that is all that I had to ask you today. Do you have any closing thoughts or things that you want to say to anybody that may watch or read this?
educate yourself on the history of music, become a nerd, become just so ingratiated and just wanting to learn about music history. And when you really do that, you're going to find so many similarities, and you're going to find things that have been deliberately separated. And then you're going to say, we're not going to separate them anymore. This is the same. We are the same. And country music is for everyone.
So, Rafi, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day. It's day over there, but taking time out of your day to talk with me. I know you got a sound check and things to get ready for, but just I appreciate you taking time out.
Thank you so much. This was amazing. Thank y'all.